Scott. I'm the founder and CEO of Fuse, and this is the Manufacturing Matrix. And I am here with a couple of our newer partners here from Cohn Reznick. So I'll let them do some introductions of the firm and themselves, and we'll get into it.
Thanks, Craig. My name is Shawn Flowers. I'm a partner in the Enterprise Applications Group at Cohn Reznick. We're an audit tax accounting firm, but we also have an advisory practice that's quite mature. We, in the enterprise application space, service ERP and CRM predominantly, but we have a few other forms of corporate applications that we both implement and provide post-implementation services on. And I have been in manufacturing and distribution for the entirety of my career, which spans a couple decades, and several systems and a couple continents. So very happy to be here and talk manufacturing with you, Craig. Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
My name's Ryan Riss. I'm from Denver, Colorado. I'm a senior manager at Cohn Reznick for our technical services. So NetSuite customization, integration, or complex workflows. I joined Cohn Reznick 2 years and change ago, but I've been working on NetSuite for the past 10 in many different jobs, user, admin, consultant, and developer most recently.
Wow.
So
Okay.
kind of done nearly every job in NetSuite except for being a controller.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Yeah, so we've been working, with you guys over the past, several months to try to get something together. So we're really excited to be able to partner up with you guys, especially, in that NetSuite sphere. So we've been doing a lot of work in that space and manufacturing and distribution. Hopefully we'll be able to really collaborate on some of those projects with you guys here very soon. Already been engaged in a couple of opportunities, so that's exciting. Always love to hit the ground running. What are you guys seeing, I guess, from your side? Like, what's kind of happening out there in the industry? Where are some of the gaps that obviously we came together for a reason, right? So what were some of the things that you guys were noticing out there that you think we can help with?
Everybody's very interested in domestic manufacturing from a cost and data perspective these days. With the tariff situation, with international competition, et cetera, a lot of the focus that we're seeing is how do we get these razor thin margins responsive. And so, yeah, that's been something that I think that Fuse fits very well in, owing to the landscape of application space that you guys will handle and allow organizations, if they embrace you, to divest of. And simultaneously, you're answering a lot of the questions that manufacturers have to be asking themselves when they look at labor or material, which are the big two that we're always trying to refine and slice and dice. So, yeah, I think it's a very exciting time, and I think that you guys have created a platform that spans a lot of the problems that are common to especially heavy and discrete manufacturers that we work with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, from my world, again, technical and integration areas, I see a lot of people that are asking, what can this system do for me? And obviously I run a set of books, usually in NetSuite, but how do I get the results of my production into accounting, track variances, labor, materials, et cetera. But they're also starting to ask a lot more frequently, okay, how do I control my processes and my quality and everything else and get a whole lot more data out of your manufacturing process than you typically would out of an ERP transactional set. There's a lot more that goes into transactions than just your GL accounts, for sure.
Yeah.
In the meantime, don't at all burden the labor force with any additional data entry
Yeah.
simultaneously. Yeah.
Yeah, we can't slow them down, right? I
Yeah.
mean, that's the thing that we're trying to address here is that conversion cost from raw material to finished goods is labor, material, some overhead. But yeah, we certainly don't want to increase any one of those components. Kind of counterproductive, right? So it's very interesting because we just recently had another conversation with the president of the Precision Metal Form Association. So they spend a lot of time in Washington, lobbying around tariffs and things like that. Reshoring. Uh, Same conversation. They're seeing the same things in their manufacturing base. They want to control that conversion cost, understand it better. I think that's kind of like step one is let's understand really what it is because a lot of them are just doing standard cost back flushing. They don't really get it. There's some
Yeah.
manual sheets that are being filled out on the shop floor, but they're put in at the end of the week, or maybe they're never entered in. Even if they do get put in, no one really looks at them, right? It's all very, retroactive. Um, so we're seeing a lot of that come up, in the industry. So, and I think you brought up another interesting point too. That's the operational model, right? So there's kind of two schools of thought that we see when people come to us and ask about MES. On one hand, we get the folks that want to collect information. And there's a number of tools out there that can collect information. You got Excel for starters. That's the most popular
Mhm.
MES system there is. You got other things like Tulip and Red Zone and a lot of these kind of like frontline worker applications that can collect data, but they don't really do anything as far as controlling the operational model. So being able to influence the production process, the quality controls that are put in place, is really where the MES layer comes in to play and putting in those the constraints so that especially with the newer workforce, right, they're coming in with less training. They're not as skilled as the guys that have been around for 30 years that are on their way out. So we're seeing a lot of companies want to invest in this technology that can help automate some of that business process. Or you either add more middle management to keep an eye on the operations, or you have to have technology that helps kind of enforce your operational models. So that's kind of what we're seeing on our end. And definitely to your point, I think some people have tried to do this at the ERP layer, but they've failed pretty miserably, right? Because ERP is about transactions and MES is about events. We're looking at very specific, very granular events. And we've done a lot of NetSuite related deployments and other ERP systems. And so there's some interesting metrics where we found that on rough order of magnitude, like 50,000 ERP transactions per month translates to about 5 million MES events in that same month.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
it's just every operator interaction, every barcode they scan, every uptime, downtime of the equipment. It's just so different. And so I just cringe when I see companies try to cram all of this information into their ERP system and it comes to like a screeching halt. Everything just gets slow. They're just not
Oh,
designed
yeah.
for that.
It
So,
certainly would be cramming it in there. I
yeah,
was pretty impressed with the ability to capture a barcode scan
right.
because that wouldn't represent very well as a
Yeah,
transaction in an ERP.
right.
Then the bandwidth would be massive.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and doing it all, over the cloud. I mean, we're cloud based, but we've implemented some specific technologies on top of that to be able to handle that throughput and bandwidth that you typically don't find in a ERP system. So no, it's I think we're seeing the same kinds of things, right? So what can we do? Obviously, material is a big component of this, right? Tariffs, imports, and everything else going into the manufacturing process. Do you guys see any opportunities there, how we might be able to help customers?
I see, the logical next step is your guys' tool controlling workflows with robotic automation.
Hmm.
Because you're creating an technology ecosystem that can handle everything, in the shop floor. We just have to absorb the accounting impacts,
Yeah.
and I do believe that that'll probably be, next. And I'm curious, actually. I was looking forward to this conversation because as we're starting to see protocols for things like AI.
Hmm.
So in our world, we're seeing a model context protocol that's starting to
Yeah.
take hold. I'm curious in robotic automation if such things, if you guys are able to leverage that type of thing, in
Yeah.
your control systems and such.
Yeah, actually, I noticed that NetSuite not too long ago released their MCP capabilities. So we did about the same time. We released our MCP server. So we have a cloud MCP server. We also do MCP at the edge with our device gateway, which connects to all the industrial equipment. So robots, CNCs, weigh scales, RFID devices. So we could definitely leverage that. I
Hmm.
think we're seeing that a lot of the larger manufacturers that we deal with are still, they're a little conservative when it comes to AI. They want to be very cautious because in manufacturing, things are so deterministic. I can't necessarily afford to have anything make a decision on behalf of the human because it could lead to catastrophic failure of the equipment. I don't want someone to lose an
Yeah.
arm, right? Because AI
Uh,
hallucinated. So everybody has these fears, which are probably right to have. And we have to work on that as an industry together. So we're working with, companies like Fanuc Robotics right now on some MQTT protocols to get the data into our MCP environment so we can try to figure some of this out and make it safe for manufacturers. We're also partnering up with SESME so we can get some standardization around how all of this works. So there's a lot going on, but no straightforward answer yet. I think that's the thing. We see a lot of application with AI from a vision standpoint. So for quality, seems to be really taking off well. So we can put vision cameras in anywhere. We can do 100% quality inspection on products, right? So I mean that's just going to again, that's a conversion cost, right? So not having to have a person standing there doing all these dimensional checks or visual inspections, capturing the data. And oftentimes,
hmm
we find that like it's skip lot type quality inspection. So I do 1 out of 100 or, 10 out of every batch. With the vision systems, you're doing 100%
Right.
inspection.
Yeah.
So you're gaining a lot of control there. And then getting that process feedback into the MES allows us to then bundle that information up. So we have a digital twin of every product that goes out the door. And then we can feed that back to the ERP system, right? So first time quality, what's it really costing us to make the product? Because we talked about labor and materials, but both of those still have that other component that people are not very good at tracking, that scrap component. And
Oh
we've
yeah.
had a lot of customers struggle with that on the NetSuite side, right?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's just so it's difficult in any ERP system. I was just doing a demo earlier today, and we were going through like the operator interface, and I was explaining how, even from a raw component or WIP standpoint, how does the operator identify that that material is suspect or scrap? And that's something where now I'd have to go into the ERP system, get somebody with credentials to do an inventory adjustment on that material. That's not very elegant. That's not something I really want a shop floor person to try to do or worry about. So putting some of those, quality of life features into the MES is something that we really focus a lot on with our customers. To the point you made earlier, making sure that we're not adding extra work to the operator, but we make it super easy to collect that data. That's really, really important in the implementation approach. So I know we're going to be working over the next several months to hopefully get some of your team up to speed. Probably you. I'm guessing I'm going to be working with quite a bit on how Fuse
Maybe
works,
we'll
at least to
see.
understand how we're interacting with NetSuite back and forth. So
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll talk plenty about save searches and suite scripts and everything else.
Now you're speaking
And a
Ryan's
whole
language.
lot more.
Have you guys started to see the other one that's been really interesting is the camera feeds
Hmm.
as a source of data input, and that's as the Amazon marketplaces or whatever sort of shifted out of existence due to that failed experiment.
Hmm.
I'm curious, is that also kind of aiding reluctance to change? Because I definitely think we can see a future where cameras on the shop floor are
Yeah.
doing most of our reporting for us.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
when does, how do you see that taking fold or?
Yeah, we do see a lot of companies, a lot in the startup space that are doing a lot, especially with cameras and very inexpensive, easy to obtain cameras. So we've got two ends of the spectrum where we see a lot of Cognex and the higher end machine learning cameras, but they're difficult to acquire. You have to have sophisticated PLCs to run them. We see a lot of the startups that we're working with on the AI front that are looking at less expensive IP-based cameras that just plug into like any type of PoE port. We can do 3D vision sense. We're working with the robot manufacturer to actually do some of this where it's pretty crazy. Like a camera on the end of the robot will just follow the product wherever it goes. So it's getting to be very quick. The cognitive ability of the cameras coupled with the AI and the machine learning to be able to instantly trigger motion and industrial equipment. Um, it's a lot easier to deploy a camera than 1,000 sensors on a machine to tell me everything that went wrong.
No.
And I think there's a lot of, we work with an automotive OEM, Slate Auto, that's a simple SKU. They only do 2 SKUs. So that's like one end of that example. But a lot of the other OEMs that we work with are high number of SKUs, right? You get into some of the high end vehicles. So I think that's another great application for cameras. The high number of SKUs that you have to deal with without having to like retrain and reprogram everything, just a huge cost benefit to the manufacturers.
No. Yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely. And I can presume that it'll also go more to configurability,
Yeah,
as time goes on. So,
more no low code
no.
capabilities for these things. The collaborative robots, we're doing a lot of work with those, so just easy to train, low friction point to get into that. Still a little bit pricey, but if you can justify that. But it was the same 10 years ago when everybody was talking about RFID, right? It was like super expensive to get into, and now it's become such a commodity that you probably should have that in your warehouse. If you don't, you can put RFID in every tag that you print on every pallet, and you can track all the locations with some ceiling mounted readers now, and you can get into that for less than $15,000-$20,000. So it was probably 10x that a decade ago.
No.
As time goes on, technology just gets less and less expensive.
So, what do you see, like, from your guys' vantage point, other than the sort of diminishment of people, let's call it, like, say, operator or system interaction, as some goals that we should be aiming for simultaneously? I mean, we're always, aware of better accounting, making sure that scrap has
Yep.
been, properly identified. But in terms of overall, as we're competing in a more and more global marketplace, and
Hmm.
and these types of things, what do you see as what we ought to be focused on?
Well, I think selfishly, what manufacturers ought to be focused on right now is their data, right? The most impressive companies in the world have taken ownership of their data. People talk about Tesla. They make a car, but really what they're making is an instrument with an incredible number of sensors on that thing, right? So every car that's driving down the road is collecting data, and Tesla owns all of that data. They're using that to do traffic studies instead of the old engineering methods. They're just collecting data off of all the Tesla vehicles in cities like Boston to do all of these studies. So that's, I think, where manufacturers of the future understand that having their data in a place that can be contextualized and accessible to tools like MCP and AI to be able
Hmm.
to analyze that are going to be so far ahead. So whether we put HMIs in front of the operators to collect data, or we do what we call headless MES, where everything's fully automated, we're connected with the PLCs, it doesn't really matter. I think a lot of these companies are going to have to crawl before they run in some of these deployments. It could be putting cameras out there to collect the data. But that's one thing that we've really here, with the platform have tried to build out is being that enterprise data layer, connecting from to use some like different terminology, like ISA 95 has this pyramid, the Purdue model that shows the ERP systems and your other enterprise systems sort of at the top. You have your shop floor systems down below. And they show MES on their pyramid is always in the middle, layer 3. So ERP, MES, and then shop floor PLCs. But really flipping that model around now, you've got MES, warehouse management, yard management, everything that sort of works at the operational layer, on the concrete side of the business. And then you've got other technology on the carpet side, ERP, PLM, CRM. All of these things need to feed into one central place, right? To be able to combine and contextualize all of this information and make it really useful for AI. So that's what we work with our customers on all the time. The MES is really just step one of so many steps to getting everything harmonized in a unified solution.
What do you think the horizon is before organizations allow decision support or autonomous decision making between carpet and concrete? So, I get a call from a major customer who's canceling an order, and or maybe they do so online, without even informing me, and somehow I am impacting today's production schedule because it does have implications for that, and the system will make that delineation much quicker than any person could. So, but at the same time, there's a lot of trepidation towards letting AI loose. So, if you were gonna guess, is it 5 years before we have agents acting on our behalf and production management and customer service, or is it a shorter horizon from your perspective?
I think it's probably a little shorter horizon for some. If you categorize the transaction and events that are happening between the ERP layer and the shop floor layer, some of those have different levels of criticality, right? So I think it's going to be a much shorter horizon before we can see things like customer cancels an order through their customer portal, and that funnels its way down to canceling that work order on the shop floor. I don't see why that couldn't happen today, but there's going to have to be a sense of comfort with the organization that wants to implement that technology. You get beyond that, you get to things like machine recipes, adjusting the production schedule. Anything that really impacts the kind of event-driven nature of what's happening on the shop floor might never become autonomous, in my opinion. Always have kind of a person that's verifying that last mile. I think that's probably also very close in the near future. I think with NetSuite moving to an MCP, clearly they're opening the platform up for people to be able to do things like this and build their own agents and workflows. And we've done the same thing. We see other big ERP vendors following the same pattern. I think some of them will probably develop their own AI agents, built into the platform that will probably handle more discrete processes, AP automation, right? I'm sure some of those things people are already doing, right? Automated three-way matching. We've been doing OCR recognition for how long, right? Matching supplier invoices. So I think everything just evolves. It takes a little bit of time, but I think we're pretty close on some of those things.
Yeah, it is interesting to me how much more sophisticated adjacent industries are about computer-aided decision support.
Yeah.
When manufacturing, you would think of all would be the most to benefit.
Yeah.
From the computational, the compute capability that these tools bring to bear. But yeah, I do think that manufacturers in specific, are like to manage their shop, and that may cause some slowness to adoption in the.
I was was trying to think of a state. You said something earlier about letting AI run a plant, and I was trying to think, well, if writing software with AI is called vibe coding,
Yeah.
what is that at a plant?
Vibe
Vibe
manufacturing.
engineering.
Yeah. Yeah. Vibe operations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Prompt the plant to make you a new product.
You're going to have to
Yeah.
define whatever that is first before people get comfortable with letting it into their own work.
Right. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. I think there will be, for a long time anyways, I feel like there will be a gatekeeper, there will be somebody that's monitoring the AI, but I certainly see operators, especially in the maintenance realm, there's huge benefits there to, reduce the amount of downtime on equipment when the machine goes down for whatever reason. AI agents can very easily skim through manuals, right? Find, trouble codes, offer suggestions to the maintenance technicians, all these things that, they'd have to typically go back to the office, pull out the manuals, search online. So even if you
Yeah.
can reduce that time from an hour to 5 minutes, you've now gained back 55 minutes of production. That, that I think that's some of the power that I see happening right now with AI on the shop floor. To augment the existing personnel and make them more powerful.
Sure. Yeah, thinking about that, I'm trying to imagine a company that doesn't have a lot of manufacturing data right
Mhm.
now. You said a lot of people have a lot of experience with using Excel, but that's just a data collection
Right.
system, rarely integrated, rarely has a go
Yeah.
button. And now we're talking about AI helping make these decisions. I'm curious if someone were to hop onto Fuse tomorrow,
Mhm.
coming from Excel, how much data would Fuse have to gather to be able to help make some of these? It's time to maintain your equipment. Would that be like 3 months of data, 6 months of data?
It can range between, the typical rule of thumb there is somewhere between 3 and 6 months worth of data, right? From the time you start collecting contextualized data off of the equipment before you're able to identify enough patterns, right? With enough predictability in those patterns. As you'll see in a short data set, you're going to see some anomalies that are just outliers, and you need to be able to weed that out. So, yeah, we've typically seen like 6 months is kind of like the golden rule, I think, typically. And we can take data that's been captured in Excel. It's probably lower frequency data than, once we connect to a machine, typically we're sampling it sub-second, 3 or 4 times every second. We're figuring out what's going on, and we're storing all of that data. And then compressing it and aggregating it over time, so we'll bucket it down to like by hour, by shift, maybe by day.
Yeah.
So that way, the further out you get, like a year down the road, you're really just analyzing data that happens shift over shift as opposed to, 1 second to the next.
Right. I'm imagining a Six Sigma black belt
Yeah.
looking at a product like Fuse. And I think one of their big mottos is if you want to improve it, you have to measure it.
Yeah.
Well, how do you measure it?
Yeah.
Here we are.
Here you are. Yeah. So, you got to have a place to put all the data, right? And you got to have the tools to be able to capture the data. So,
Yeah.
that's where we came in with industrial drivers to connect to existing machines. We do support some industrial protocols for like legacy equipment as well. And then a lot of times we go into these plants and they're running equipment that should be in the Henry Ford Museum. It's really outdated. There's no PLCs. There's no wires on it. It's held together by, duct tape and bubble gum. So, we can
Did we
add
pass the
sensors.
museum on our way here? I can't
Yeah,
remember.
I think you did drive by
Yeah.
the Henry Ford Museum. But yeah, it's something that, we see all the time, right? Especially in the small mid-size, they don't have the capital to invest in a lot of the equipment, a lot of the tier ones, obviously the OEMs, there's a lot more floating around. But as you trickle down into the smaller manufacturers, and a lot of those are going to be NetSuite users too, right? They struggle in that regard. A lot of them that we've worked with don't have even dedicated IT departments. A lot of them will use an MSP. So they don't have that in-house expertise to even think about how we're going to collect the data. And then even if they did, how are they going to analyze it? So it's pretty disparate, right? As you get
Oh
into the
yeah.
larger companies, now they've got teams. They have digital transformation experts. They have business analysts. They have all of these skill sets, data operations. Um, so that's where having a platform that's got tools in it,
Hmm.
low, no code capabilities, trying to enable those small, mid-sized manufacturers more.
Right. Yeah, even if you're lucky enough to find a person who is really good at a product or a platform or just a technology
Hmm.
generalist, I've found it exceedingly rare for a while now that that person is really good at another platform as well. I even think of myself,
Hmm.
I do a lot of NetSuite work,
Yep.
but I'd have to remove myself quite a bit to figure something else out. So all
Yep.
the clients that I work with, they're often put into jobs where they have to be pretty good at multiple
Yeah.
systems.
Yeah.
Microsoft admin, NetSuite admin, an MES admin. So
Yep.
having a platform, I'd love to get to know more about your no low code solution.
Yep.
Just seems like a great deal to me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's difficult for a lot of these companies that we're seeing a trend now, especially in the like 100 million and up manufacturing sector, up to the multi-billion, where they're no longer looking for like one solution to do everything. They want the best in breed approach. They've got multiple facilities doing different things. One facility might be discrete, another one's batch, another one's process. You can't use the same MES typically. That's one of the things that we brought to the table was the ability to handle all different modes of manufacturing. But generally speaking, the legacy approach has been you buy solution A, solution B, solution C. You got to tape them all together with solution D. Now you want to
Yeah,
connect
yeah.
to machines, so now you throw on solution E, F, G, right? So before you know it, you've got 16 or 20 different applications. We've talked to CIOs, I'm sure you guys have too, that have 40 or 50 applications that they're trying to manage. Some on-prem, some in the cloud, different licensing models, right? It's a pain.
I go to my SSO sign on and I think I have like
Yeah,
70.
that's wild. Yeah,
Not that I've logged into all of them, but they're there.
yeah,
We see a lot of smaller mid-market manufacturers these days in the PE acquisition
mm,
space.
yeah,
And it seems like that model is pretty adept at acquiring latent value and unearthing it through technology transformation. Is that like, do
yeah,
you see a lot of your inbound organizations that are in that smaller to mid as being PE backed, or is that
yeah.
something just unique to our perspective?
No, I see that as well. A lot of PE-backed organizations, I think that it's maybe a newer trend that some of the PE firms that we've worked with recognize that an incremental improvement in operational efficiency is an immediate impact on the bottom line for the company, right? They're buying these organizations to turn them around, to make them profitable, maybe to sell them off, maybe not. Um, but either way they go, and I think what we've seen over time is that there was always this big push, like let's put a new ERP system in, right? So, okay, but what does that do to the bottom line, right? We put a new ERP system in, we've got a new GL. I've got a nicer looking balance sheet, a prettier P&L statement. Haven't impacted the top or bottom line, really. Maybe I've had some efficiencies, but I forget the exact metric. I think like a 10-point shift on OEE results in like a 10 to 15 point positive adjustment at the bottom line. So that's real tangible dollars that by putting in an MES system and capturing the data and looking at the data and making those improvements, yeah, we've seen a lot of opcos adjust to that, and a lot of them going to NetSuite and Fuse at the same time. That I can't even tell you the number of those that we've seen happen. Yeah, and it works really well. The other nice thing there for the PE firms is that they're not always sticking in one mode of manufacturing. I've seen automotive suppliers next to a company that makes flower pots, all under the same umbrella, and maybe another company that fabricates countertops. So the typical downside there is, yeah, like the ERP can work for all of those, right? Because that's pretty standard. But then they have a different operating system for every one of them, different MES. Now they're able to go with Fuse and have a common package across their entire OpCo portfolio. So yeah, the ones that we've worked with, there's a half a dozen or so. I'm sure we'll learn about more too, working with you guys. I think it's a great solution for them to be able to standardize. There's predictability in cost structure. There's predictability in the rollout, time frame, implementation, cost, everything that goes along with standardizing on the two platforms.
Yeah. Yeah, agreed. And definitely an opportunity for us to explore, hopefully, in the near future.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really glad you guys were able to make it in today, and glad we were able to have this conversation. Looking forward to kicking off this partnership and doing some good stuff for some manufacturers out there.
Yeah, agreed, Craig. And we really cannot say enough how I don't mean to speak for you, but we've been very impressed by Fuse. It's
Nice.
It's definitely something that I think that we've always sort of asked, why is this marketplace the way it is?
Yeah.
The stuff that you guys replace, we run into little bits of it every here and there, and none of it talks to each other. None of it has a concept of the orders or transactional identifiers that each system's using. So the fact that you guys can do all of that and do iPass and do EDI and all these other things, it's a very impressive platform you've built. So
Yeah,
very
thank you.
excited to learn more and partner with you. And thank you very much for having us. This has been awesome.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys.